Hello, everyone. My name is Aldas Kriauciunas, and welcome to today's webinar on Employee Development Plan. I am Aldas Kriauciunas, Executive Director of Purdue's Executive Education Programs. I've been in this role for about 10 years. I'm really glad to have you joining us so that we can answer your questions on this targeted subject. Timely, given that this time of year, October, November, people are already working on their development plans for next year. I'm glad to be joined by two of our alums, Aaron Whedon and Jordan McCroskey. I'll have Aaron introduce himself right now, and then Jordan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aaron Whedon. I'm Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for a mid-tiered manufacturer of food and beverage ingredients in the Midwest. Happy to join here today.
Thanks, Aaron. My name is Jordan McCroskey. I'm the Managing Director of OESD here in the great state of Oklahoma, and I was a 2018 alum of the IMM program, so thanks for having me as well. Aldous, I think we'll turn it back over to you, although we might be frozen.
I think he's frozen. He's definitely gone now.
Yeah, we'll see if we get Aldous back in. Aldous is just arrived back last night from Lithuania, which was probably one of the best trips in the program. Aaron, you got to go to Lithuania as well, right?
I did. It was amazing. And our trip, we went from Lithuania to Italy. And what a contrast between two countries, two economic environments, and to see the cultural impact of a different government style, let's say, over Lithuania for the prior several decades, and the impact that had on their culture, as I said, but as well their business environment, versus then going the very next week to Milan, Italy, one of the fashion capitals of the world, and how that interaction was really driven home of how approachable and open people were in Lithuania to a much more fast-paced version of life going on in Milan. So they're very different.
And you guys went in the spring, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See, Aldous prepped us a nice winter trip for Lithuania. So, which actually was great. I got to break out some nice, that's certainly one of the fun things about this program is you're going to get to pack a variety of outfits for your travel.
That's true. Yeah, you got to be prepared.
Aldous, I think you're back with us.
I am back. Sorry about that.
That's all good. We're just telling everyone that you just headed back from Lithuania.
Indeed. Very nice trip, and it was more Aaron Whedon weather than Jordan McCroskey weather, I believe, for this time around. So apologize for the break there on technology. I assume you finished your introductions?
We did. Yep.
Awesome. Very good. So thank you both for joining. And again, your experiences, I think, will be very valuable for the people joining us today. So let me talk now briefly about Purdue University. We just celebrated our 150th anniversary, certainly a big deal for us, part of the Big Ten Athletic Conference. And while today we're focused on the EMBA, keep in mind Purdue is a leader in over 200 different areas. Recently, in fact, ranked, I think, top 10 for innovation within the U.S. university system. So there's a lot certainly going on here at Purdue University. Purdue, we got alumni all over the world, 600,000 Boilermaker alumni, as we call ourselves, close to 50,000 Krannert alumni, about 3,000 Executive MBA alumni, and we have chapters in pretty much every major and minor U.S. city and in 50 countries around the world. So as you travel, I know Jordan and Aaron do, I'm sure people call you out when you have your Purdue clothing on, and usually they'll yell boiler up to you. Is that, there you go. So pretty much wherever you go, you'll find a Purdue alum and or people that know Purdue's most famous alum, Neil Armstrong. Though Jordan or Aaron, who knows, you may bypass Neil Armstrong still in the future. So a little bit about the cohort. So this is a 3-year running average, and it kind of gives you an idea of who your fellow students will be within the program. We have a minimum of 5 years required work experience, certainly no maximum, and the average has been trending 15 to 17 years. The positions that people work in very much reflect the work experience, manager, director, VP, and higher. Industry, because people can and do live and work anywhere in the world. No one industry dominates, and it is truly a very nice reflection of different areas. I'm sure you heard from the introductions, Jordan working manufacturing, I would say, certainly global company. Aaron, I always wonder how to label him, but I always call it food processing, though it doesn't do justice to your company either. But again, the range of different backgrounds is neat. In geography, about a quarter Indiana, a quarter rest of the Midwest, quarter rest of the US, and about a quarter international. Certainly within the global EMBA program that Jordan and Aaron graduated from, a higher international representation just by the very nature of the program. So let me talk briefly about our format. It is very unique. There's only maybe about a dozen such programs in the nation, and it truly is our strength of the program. So both of our EMBA programs are 19 months from start to finish. We start with a program launch. It's been online lately, but we're looking to bring that back on campus. And during that time, you meet the members of your cohort of your first study team. You take a class session for each of the courses of that first module, and you learn about the technology platforms that we use. We've moved to using Zoom as we're doing now, MS Teams for program management, and Brightspace for the courses. So for Jordan and Aaron, that's a lot different than what you had. So we have changed even in our systems to make them work even better for our students. After that, we have our pre-residency, 8 to 10 weeks of online work where you're working with your teams, different assignments, individual and team. You submit them, you get feedback from the faculty as well. Faculty are available to answer questions. And one recent innovation that we've added is about 3 weeks into the pre-residency, faculty are adding an anchor session. That anchor session, primarily for the quant courses, but not only, is a chance for the faculty member to sort of summarize, okay, here's what we've done in those first 3 weeks, and here's what remains in the pre-residency as well. So it's a way just to, if people are a little bit lost or things aren't coming together, it's a way to help give people that common understanding and certainly be asking questions in a synchronous format. With the pre-residency done, you come to campus. It could be Milan, Italy. It could be West Lafayette, Indiana, depending on the program and the module that we're in. And then typically you'll have the classes, 4 90-minute classes a day. And then where possible, company visits, guest speakers, career management, support throughout the program and social events. I personally returned from Lithuania over the weekend. And so we did have from a IT financing company, a guest speaker, and we went and visited a bot group. I think Jordan or Aaron, you're there as well. At the time, they were known for creating their solar panels. They have added a significant business in glass lenses as well, and they're exporting to about 30 countries around the world. So again, it's a nice way to understand how different companies are developing different business models and dealing with their business challenges. After the residency, you return home, you have a week to prepare for final exams Those exams are online over a 9-day period. You choose when you take those different exams. You download them. They're typically timed. When you're done or almost done, you upload them and move on to the next exam, however is best for you. After exams, you have a 1-week break, and then you start the next pre-residency with new study groups. I assume Jordan and Aaron talked a little bit about their peers in the program. And one critical aspect is that we change the study groups each module so that you work with as many different people as possible during your time in the program. And so having people from 20 different industries and the opportunity to work with them is truly a strength of the program. We have 2 different EMBA programs within Purdue. One is our traditional EMBA, and we call it traditional because you come to West Lafayette, Indiana for 5 of your 6 residencies, with the last one being an international residency. In that program, we have more electives to choose from, in particular our immersion electives, which are 1 credit, where you as a cohort get to suggest new courses that we should have in the program, and you meet with the faculty member before the courses are held to give her or him input for what you'd like to have covered in that course. With the IMM Global EMBA, there we go to 7 countries on 4 continents during the time in the program, and each one is a 2-week residency. So 1 less residency, but they're all 2 weeks each. Certainly its point of differentiation, or bonus, as I like to call it, is the cultural and business immersion. You can read about different countries all day, but until you've been there, until you talk with locals, until you visit businesses and see the nuances at times of how business and business models are different, you may not gain that full appreciation. And also you earn 2 MBA degrees, 1 from Purdue and 1 from our Dutch partner, TIAS. So Jordan and Aaron both actually have 2 MBA degrees by the very fact of they were in and graduated from the program. Courses are for a general management MBA curriculum. Our view is that a general manager needs to understand the broader area of business, so the different functional courses and how those come together to help you really make better decisions, understand the trade-offs that you have to make within an organization, and pull upon the right experts and ask better questions by the very nature of going through the program. In both cases, you have the networking and executive career coaching, and then you do a capstone project in both cases, as well as a different elective that all of you in the cohort take. So it's a great curriculum and a great way to really dive deep into the topics and to get to know others within the program. And then just a little bit about the format when you're on campus. As I mentioned early on, 4 90-minute time periods within a day, 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. Typically, it's a different topic between the morning and afternoon to give you a bit of that mental variety. Here we've added, when we've been in West Lafayette, we've gone to the Amazon Distribution Center to complement the operations class that may be held. We may have in the evening activities. One thing that's been popular over the past 19 months was trivia night, because we could do it socially distanced and still have a great time, and adding a little bit of competition. Here in West Lafayette, we would rent out a restaurant with 250 seats for our cohort of 20 to 25. So definitely safe and socially distanced as we went through that. On the international trips, we always have a city tour. So I know we did that for 6 or 7 cities for Jordan and Aaron, the city tour, the company visits, and some other special cultural immersion activities. So with that, I'm going to move to our topic today, because it's a challenge. As you noted from the format, you could do an online or a weekend or an evening MBA and your company may never know about it. You cannot be gone for 1 or 2 weeks at a time without your company knowing, or they'll say, why is Jordan going to Lithuania in February for vacation? Well, he's not. or wherever. But on the plus side, it's useful, I believe, because it promotes having a discussion on topics that maybe you've never discussed. So with that, it's great to have Jordan and Aaron joining us to talk about this. And now that they've been graduated for a bit, maybe they've reflected on that early part of the process as well. So I'll just be going back and forth. And certainly for those of you joining us today, if there's a question for either Jordan or Aaron, you can unmute your mic or use the chat box, and either myself or Brian will see your question. So I'll start with you, Jordan, because you're higher up on the screen at the moment. So about when did you start planning to do an EMBA program, given it was a March start?
Yeah, so I would say it was always kind of a career goal to do an MBA. Yeah, and then as I progressed in my career, it became more apparent that the executive MBA would fit better, into my work life. And I think, so my stories are probably a little different than some in that I got promoted before I started my MBA. So I was director of marketing, and then I got promoted to managing director of the business. And at that point, it was the warning lights for me of, I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I got promoted in late summer, and that was about the point when I started approaching my boss, our CEO, with, I need some additional education. Things like a balance sheet are scary to me, and they shouldn't be, and I want to make sure that I'm successful in this new role. And so that's how that conversation started. And I was actually a very quick admit, I would say, for Purdue, because I was thinking about starting the following year, and Aldas wisely convinced me to just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off and get started. And I will always be appreciative of that advice.
And I will say that was good advice. The reason I say that is those that delay a year because they think life will be easier, it never is. Now there are particular circumstances, but I'm certainly glad you joined. Aaron, how about you for this question?
I'd always had it as a goal myself. I think similar to Jordan, it was something I aspired to. But similarly, my company or my employer moved me halfway across the country with the understanding that, hey, you don't have to get an MBA yet. We're happy with everything that's going on. And then after I moved here with my family, they were like, oh, by the way, you need to get an MBA to continue to progress in the company. And at that time, I was what they would call an executive director of sales. I was managing the EMEA region, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And so the very idea of trying to somehow pack an MBA into a schedule where I was traveling 60 to 70% of the time on an annual basis, and especially considering a traditional MBA really wasn't attractive at all. But what it ultimately came down to is, hey, there are other options out there, and there are programs available. And in doing my own homework and realizing that, hey, there's this thing called EMBA, which I wasn't familiar with at the time even, that is a very viable option for somebody that was traveling as much as I was traveling. And this, of course, was pre-COVID, and able to fit in that kind of a program into my current work schedule, because I think most people that are considering this type of program, they're working full time. They've got things outside of a traditional MBA student that they've got to do and get done and accomplish still. And so this was very attractive for me, and realizing that, hey, yeah, we actually do want you to get your MBA. We have a track for you for progression and advancement if you can do this, while you're still holding everything else down too, by the way. This became a very attractive option for me.
Awesome. And you raised a good point that especially for those that have travel as part of their work responsibilities, doing an evening or a weekend program, even if it is with other working professionals, may not schedule wise. So I'll stay with you then, Aaron. How did you share that information within your organization? Who did you speak with about those steps of doing an EMBA program to get that support?
So I spoke both up and down in the organization. So I was very engaged with both my boss, who was Chief Commercial Officer, as well as with the CEO of our company. They were both very supportive and left it up to me to determine which kind of program do you want to do. And I received some great advice on things like, make sure you join a program where you're able to network with the people that you're going to school with. And I investigated probably a half a dozen programs and everything from, institutions where you were kind of one of many. You wasn't just one cohort, there may be 20 cohorts going through at the same time. And the opportunity to, I think you touched on this earlier, Aldas, to engage with beyond your cohort, your immediate cohort, was actually not even an option at all. And so that group of people was who you were with and engaged with, and you may not even meet everybody in your cohort during the course of your time there. So I definitely was engaged with, like I said, my boss and my secondary boss, or manager, being the CEO, and gained their support and their advice as well. But then I also communicated down into my direct reports too, and said, this is what I'm thinking of doing. This has got the support of the people above me, but you need to know as well that this is what I'm going to be engaged in, and that I'm going to be leaning on you more potentially, and delegating some things downstream. And I'm going to need your support too in that. And that ended up being very critical for that 19 months of this program. Of not only did I have the support of my management team, but also the people that reported directly up into me, and they understood what I was doing as well, and ended up being a great support too, especially for those times when you're in the program on site for 2 weeks. It was very helpful.
Awesome. Jordan, same question, how you shared that information and who you spoke with?
So Aldas and I had this conversation about joining the program, right? And I'm thinking it's going to be a year out. And then we say, okay, we're going to start in, essentially 5-6 months. And so I went back to our CEO and said, okay, I've identified the program. Here's the programs I looked at. And by the way, I'd like to start in March. And, their initial response was, oh no, you've just taken on a new role. You need to learn that role, combined with, I think there's often a misconception from employers that when you get your MBA, it starts a clock on you leaving. And that was certainly a concern, as we've just promoted him, and now he's going to get an MBA, and 3-4 years from now, he's going to move on to a different organization. So, a little ahead, but I would really encourage you to be incredibly transparent in this entire process with your management structure. I was very transparent about, you just promoted me. I am not trying to leave, but I recognize that there are skills that I need and there's knowledge I need to gain through this process that's going to make me more successful. And so, certainly on the table that I had the option to leave, from a career progression, right? And we all have that option that we can move on if the MBA provides a launch pad to something new. But that transparency of, I'm doing this for myself and for the organization, really helped, I think, make that conversation a positive. And I agree with Aaron, make sure to talk with your team about, those who work for you, about what you're about to do, because you will absolutely need their support. And it's a great opportunity for you as a leader to, to encourage education and development for your direct reports as well.
Awesome. You two great points. One is that everyone in the program gets better at good they were, even coming in. The other is our data show that 2 years after graduation, half of our students are still with the company they were with when they joined. So it is not, as the fear that you shared from your bosses, Jordan, that you're jumping ship by doing the program. Many stay on and stay on for a long time. Let me move to the next question. We'll stay with Jordan and then back to Aaron. What anxiety did you have about this topic? This topic being having this discussion. And I raised this because, as EMBA students or alums, we don't talk about emotions, but there's a lot of emotion in this. So I'm asking you both to be a little bit vulnerable into sharing some of that as well, because everyone on this webinar, anyone applying to an EMBA program goes through a bit of that.
Sure. Yeah, emotion's a huge part of this. There were, I think what I was most concerned about was two things. One, what happened if they said no, and how was I going to handle that, and did that mean something about me and what they thought about me and in my future with the organization, which they didn't say no, thank God. The other piece I think is, how am I going to have this conversation with them about how we pay for this thing? That was it's like pay negotiations, right? It's, it is an investment in your future and their company's future as well. But it doesn't feel much different than a pay negotiation. So, I guess in hindsight, really wasn't that difficult of a conversation. I think mentally I made it way worse than it was going to be. And these things just happen of working out for a reason. I'm thoroughly convinced that there was a reason that Aldous pushed me in to jump quicker, right? Because during the course of my MBA program, I had little children, still both my kids were under 5 at the time. We bought a new house and moved. And, if I'd said, oh, we'll just wait one more year, it's all going to be better. Or my bosses had said, hey, wait one more year, get it under your belt, I think it would have been a much harder experience. So on that, just jump, get it done.
Thank you. Aaron?
I couldn't agree with that last point more, Jordan. I think that you put it off, you'll find more excuses to put it off. And it is painful. It's 19 months and it's not all pain either, but it's 19 months and you get through that. And at the first, you're wondering how you're going to do it. And then when you're done, you're like, wow, this was not that bad. So in fact, it was more than not that bad. It was hugely enjoyable and a great learning experience, and something that, well, I wouldn't be on here if I wouldn't recommend it to other people. But to the question of anxiety, for me, it was very similar to Jordan as well, helping my family understand what the time commitment was going to be, and making sure that they were supportive of that as well, and understood that, yeah, for the next little while, weekends are going to be challenging in some ways, and then being gone, 2 weeks at different times during the year, and you may miss some stuff. But I think, again, just the communication and the support I had both from my family and from the people I worked with helped. That's what I'm looking for. Allay, I don't know, subdue a lot of the anxiety that I was potentially feeling, of balancing life, work, and then this additional layer that I was going to add. So communicating with my family, my wife, my kids, and getting their buy-in and commitment, because it's just as much as an investment by them as it was by me or by my employer, just maybe in a different way. But as far as the work went, my job, everything I was doing, again, I had a great team to rely on, so they were very, very helpful. I think the biggest anxiety driver was just the 2 weeks when you're on site, wherever that may be, because you may be halfway around the world, the job's still happening, life is still happening, and being focused on the work, on your teammates in the cohort, and getting ready for finals. It's an intense 2 weeks, and still having to manage everything else too, even with all that support. It can be a challenge, but it's very, very doable.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll stay with you for the next question. So what information did your supervisor or others request of you as you started to move forward in this process?
So CalSec always required my grades at the end of every module. They wanted to see that I was, doing the work, and that in my case, they were investing to help pay for it as well. And so they supported me financially with tuition. And so that was part of the agreement, is I had to also, show that I was going to pass the classes and get a degree at the end of it. CalSec also required 2 additional things. At the midway point, they asked for and received a presentation from me to key members of the leadership team that knew what I was doing and involved with as an update. And what had I learned and what was I applying into my current job that this program at Purdue was providing to me, and the things and experiences I was learning. And then at the end of the program, they required a similar presentation of what have we gotten for our investment in having you go to this program at Purdue, and how does that play into your career track going forward, and where is there some alignment between our vision for what I can provide for the company and what their needs are, and what this program, the IMM program, brought to that.
So follow up, did you have to justify the choice of Purdue, or was it within a range of ranked programs you had freedom to choose?
I did have to justify Purdue. The advice that I mentioned earlier that I'd received was, hey, what about Michigan State, or what about Western, or what about, there were a couple other programs that were brought up as well. And after going through the application process and getting some great advice from Aldas and others on the Purdue team, this is the program I wanted to do. It fit well a little bit with my own personal experience already in the area of work. I've traveled the world extensively for my job. And so gaining additional insights, especially from some countries that I hadn't been to, and hearing from some people that I would consider experts in the field, to help me learn and grow. I became very passionate about wanting to attend Purdue.
Awesome, thank you. Jordan, as well, what was required of you information-wise, more so before joining the program? And did you have flexibility to choose the program, or were you being guided towards going somewhere else?
So, of course, they wanted to see what classes I was taking. There was a lot of discussion around how the 2 weeks were going to work, as far as the in-person. There was definitely a push of do a traditional weekend MBA, which I also travel about 50% for my current role, and that was going to be even more difficult. There's a lot of weekend travel in what I do, and so the inflexibility of you can't miss weekends in a traditional EMBA program almost made that a non-starter. It was funny, actually. The TIAS side of Purdue was more attractive even than Purdue. I work for an international company. They're quite familiar with TIAS, and so for me, they were very appreciative of the fact that I was looking for an international program versus a traditional US-based program. So it was, I did have the flexibility to choose my program. They obviously wanted to know what they were helping to fund, make sure that it was a good quality EMBA. And just as a side note, I was looking at I was in Chicago at the time, and I was looking at all of the major EMBA programs in Chicago. And so take advantage of, let the Purdue team run the comparisons for you, because that was, it's just easy to look at a spreadsheet that kind of works for me and the way my brain works. And that certainly helped make the decision. And I know we've talked a lot about these 2 weeks. I know it might sound impossible to dedicate 2 weeks to being out of your office and in a classroom all day. And in hindsight, that was actually way easier than you'd ever think it was possible. Especially when you're on the other side of the world, there's a time zone difference, which is great, because when you're out of class, you have time to check back in, or you can, call some of your team and have meetings if you need to. But it's so concentrated. It is so much fun. I know it's really weird to say it's fun, but the modules were the best part of this whole thing. And being able to just go in and focus for 2 weeks and knock it out, it works great. So yes, your employer's probably going to be a little concerned about how they're going to give you all this vacation, and are you going to be able to do your job? And that's a natural conversation. Go into that conversation with them with a plan. That way it's not like, yeah, you're right, I'm going to be out for 2 weeks. Here's how we're going to cover this, or this person's going to help with this, or here's how I'm going to still be available. do that prep work, and it'll be a great conversation.
Awesome. I think we've already covered, did you discuss the workload while in residency? Yep. Clearly you both did. It sounds like the financial support was somewhat separate from the other elements, and that's good. I'm going to add a new question here. So today's title was how to integrate the EMBA into your annual review and planning.
Yes.
But what I'm hearing from both of you, it wasn't a one-time conversation and maybe not just limited to the coming year planning. Is that a fair statement? And I don't know if Jordan and Aaron, if you want to add maybe something to that conclusion of what I'm hearing from the two of you.
Mm-hmm. Aaron?
Yeah, that is a very fair conclusion. Aldous, it was never a one-time conversation. And even when I talked about, well, I had to present halfway through and then I had to present again at the end, it was for my immediate boss, she and I would talk at a monthly basis. Hey, how's it going? Here's what I'm seeing from my end. This seems to be working. This bit may be struggling over here. Okay, let's check and adjust. And then, Jordan, you said it perfectly, I think. When you think about those 2 weeks going into it, it's a great opportunity to have a conversation about, what's happening, what you think or feel you've got covered, what your plan is for those 2 weeks, and where you are still available too, if need be. And inevitably, it would happen. I wouldn't say it happened a lot, but yeah, there'd be 2 a.m. in China. I'm on a call with here in the U.S. because that's what worked. But I have to say it. I think that the level we're at, and the level a lot of the people are that go through this program, that's not something that is unexpected. It's part of the job. It's what we signed up for. So I would say the program and going through this type of program provides a rich opportunity to have great discussions with, your peers and your boss that maybe you wouldn't normally have even. I don't know, Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, all good points. I think the one thing I'd like to add is, so you have that conversation with your supervisor and they say, I don't think you're ready yet. Don't take the first no. Don't get argumentative, but ask why or what areas or why they have the concern. Right? Always seek to understand their point of view. In my case, my employer's first no was they were concerned that I had just taken a new role, and 2, they thought they were going to lose me. And in hindsight, the first module, those classes I was able to use them in my new role. And it was that way throughout the entire program. And so actually coupling the EMBA with running an organization for the first time was like the perfect launch pad for being successful in this organization, because business analytics was one of the first classes, and finance, and so all these core classes you need. So seek to understand the feedback from your supervisor on what their concerns are. Don't go into it just thinking about your point of view.
Awesome, thank you. And then to Aaron and then Jordan, last question on before the EMBA time frame. As you reflect on those conversations and how you managed it, clearly you both did a lot of things well because it worked out. What would you have done differently as you reflect on those conversations and how you managed the process?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think for me, the process went really pretty smoothly. I think, Jordan, you had maybe a tougher negotiation from what you've been saying than I had, where my employer came to me and said, yeah, you are going to take some kind of MBA program.
Yeah.
So I guess if I was going to say anything I would have done differently, maybe I would have done it earlier in my career than I was able to do. I actually had started an MBA program years ago, right after my undergrad, and I think I was a little too burned out at that time, and I was like, I can't do this. So I don't know. I know for me, and I've mentioned before, I couldn't stress communication enough with your boss, the people that I'm sure people on this call are managing as well. And maybe that is one area where I would go back and do a little bit more is that communication piece on the expectations that I would have from my teams that I have reporting to me. We did have to check and adjust as I got into the program. I have to say, the team does a great job of giving students talking points about, hey, here's the kind of things you want to highlight with your boss, about around these different things, or, but as far as speaking with my direct reports and helping them understand the impact on them, I should have done a little better job of understanding that up front. It wasn't horrible and it worked out fine, obviously, but preparing them a little bit more in advance, I would say, would be an aspect I would revisit.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Jordan?
I'm a numbers person. I think I would have worried less about how I was going to pay for it, or how we were going to split how much my employer was going to contribute, and focused at the beginning more about, the why question with my employer. It ended up, the funding worked out great. They contributed, I contributed. It was a very good kind of mutual agreement. I think for most of you, if your company continues to invest in you, they see a future, right, they're going to come to the table in some way or format. And everybody's business is going to have a different level of accepted funding for career development. And if they're not, well, then all the more reason you need to get started on this, because you need to get to that next place that wants to invest in you in your future. But I think the conversation we probably haven't talked a ton about, we talked a lot about supervisors, employees, but your family, Aaron's touched on this. For me, I think I sugarcoated this a lot for my wife with 2 young children about how easy this was going to be. It wasn't that bad, right? You go into this thinking you're going to do homework every waking moment, and your entire weekends are going to be spent, doing homework or studying or prepping, and then you're going to be traveling around the world where you're unavailable. And the reality is, it's really nowhere near that. You're going to do homework. You're going to spend your Saturday mornings, maybe your Saturday afternoons, but you're still going to have time for family. You're going to learn that you have more time than ever in your schedule. But I think it would have, starting that conversation with my wife even sooner would have helped with worked out great. We're happy as everything, but start that conversation even earlier and make sure your spouse is totally bought in.
Lots of good advice, certainly on the family aspect. We do on our website have a PowerPoint template that you can use to have the conversation with your company, so I encourage you to use that. We do provide something called a program comparison that Jordan mentioned, where we'll compare the Purdue programs with up to 3 others on 25 different dimensions. So giving you a spreadsheet to work with and share within your company as well. And, jumping a little bit ahead, but I know Jordan and Aaron are available to chat after this webinar with anyone joining today, or with alumni in all across different cohorts, maybe in your geographic area, maybe your industry as well. So talking one-on-one with how alumni manage that process, I think would certainly be is available. So far we've only covered, before you even started the EMBA though, we've talked about it. So let's kind of move forward temporally in the program. During your EMBA experience, so after Aaron, I guess you read my mind. You did talk about the check-in that you had. So I'll have Jordan, was there any type of check-in that you had with your supervisor or with others while you were in the program?
With my supervisor, he was pretty good about, hey, tell your team I'm here if you need anything, those kind of, he was very supportive, which, I'm super thankful that our CEO was as big a fan of continuing education as he is. The lots of check-ins with my team. I might have had Slack up on my computer in class a couple times. I think it's okay to admit that because I've graduated now. But Aaron had a much more formalized kind of mid check-in and end. I didn't have that structure. it would have probably been interesting, but I was, not everyone's company is going to make you do a presentation halfway through the thing to get to keep going, right, Aaron?
Very true.
So excellent. This kind of is related to the next question. I do know that for some people, the support to be in the program is not constant. Responsibilities change, people leave, and I know many of our students have had well, maybe you could take a break and restart a year from now. Did that happen, of that level of drama, if you will, or even was there a waning in how did you keep things focused?
What didn't happen for me, I saw it happen to a couple of my classmates. Either their companies were going through acquisitions or things like that. And so they were, one of them was given a new role and asked to take a break, and she did. And she did come back to the program. That kind of speaks to her dedication that she was able to get it done. My personal opinion is once you're in, just push to the end. I understand there's other circumstances, but it's hard to walk away from it and then get back into it. It's certainly a mindset.
Thank you. Aaron, how about you?
I don't think I could add anything to it, Aldous, to be honest. I mean, what Jordan said is it was my experience as well. I never had an experience directly myself with my employer saying, hey, you should take a break, or this isn't working out. But I did see people come back into our cohort. We actually had a few that came in and then even left again and then joined another cohort. And I can't imagine how challenging that would be to try and finish this over 3 different cohorts or even 2 different cohorts. But everybody's situation is different. And like your experience, Jordan, I know there were a couple of people in my cohort where they were struggling to keep going because of wanting support or a role change or even a financial challenge because maybe they were getting help from their employer and then that suddenly stopped. So, but I will say this, in that last situation, I know that they also reached out to Purdue and to the advisors there and things got worked out and allowed them to continue in the cohort until the financial challenges were worked out. And I think Purdue does a phenomenal job of that. Again, not experiencing that myself, but just hearing from at least 3 people within my cohort of 2019 where that did happen and how complimentary they were about the efforts on their behalf. Because I think Purdue, more than anybody, understands, to your point, Jordan, once you start, just finish it. Don't break it up. It is, I can imagine it's very hard to start and stop.
So you do raise the question about, starting and how many people graduate. So about 85% of our students graduate with the cohort they started with, and you both have mentioned reasons they may leave. Of those that leave, about half do come back and finish with a different cohort. Our philosophy is that if you've been admitted, we feel you have the skills and talent to graduate. And I think we have a fairly rigorous, I won't say selection as much as discussion process, just to make sure people are truly ready for the program. So again, thank you for your insights on that. Last question. So this relates to at least my mantra, that if you're doing 2 years after graduation the same work you were doing when you started the program, then it's a missed opportunity. So at what point did you start talking about, okay, well, graduation's coming up, maybe you're still doing the same role that you were? Did you, again, bring that out formally? And how much were you in control of that versus letting someone else lead that discussion?
Aaron, you want to go?
You want me to go ahead? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, for me, going into the program, there was an anticipation that was pretty well laid out that, kind of an if this, then that. If I do this program, if I'm successful in it and continue to have success in the work I was already doing, that there was a clear advancement path laid out. And so those were conversations that were happening with my boss during the program. as I would check in, talk about the classes I'm involved in, the projects I was working on, that would also beg the question then for me of, am I still on track? Are you still seeing the progress you want to make, or you want me to make? And it became incorporated, excuse me, as part of the annual review that I would have with my boss too. And this program spanned for me 2 annual reviews, even though it's only a 19-month program. And so that again provided a lot of rich fodder for conversations with my boss on, hey, this is what I understand the plan of progression to be, or advancement. Here's how I'm doing. Here's how I think I'm doing. Am I still on track?
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan.
So again, remember, I'd gone into this program saying I've just gotten promoted. I'm trying to learn the skills I need to be successful in my role. I was thinking I'm going to come out of this program and now I'm going to actually have the skills to do the job they've promoted me into. My employer, halfway through the program said, by the way, when you finish this, we've got some other things we think would be really interesting. And so I ended up actually taking on, we own a group of companies. And so I got to take a second role within one of those other companies, which of course came with, additional compensation. So not expected, really a nice benefit. And I wouldn't have had the skills to do it had it not been for my EMBA. And I don't know that my employer would have had the confidence in adding additional responsibilities on if they hadn't seen that I could essentially do an EMBA and the job. And clearly there was some bandwidth when I graduated, they wanted to use it. So those discussions just kind of happened. It probably leads to why I feel like these things just work themselves out if you do the right thing and always be a little humble. That's kind of what it looked like.
Awesome. And I think your both comments bring out that even if you have that support, you still keep sharing that you're in the program, keep sharing that you're learning these skills. Not that people will forget, but you are a different person at the end of the program than you were when you started. And that, I think, is what people need to keep hearing and seeing from you on that. So thank you. Beyond the EMBA, I think both of you have talked about that. I'm going to have us jump, just to keep us on time, to the second one. No, and maybe this has happened, I don't know. But if one of your reports came to you wanting to make an EMBA part of their plan, how would you manage that process? In particular, the world's a little bit different than it was when both of you started your conversations 4-ish years ago. So maybe because Jordan's unmuted, if you want to take it first, Jordan and Aaron, how would you handle it now that you are more senior and maybe you're the decision maker?
It is, we're always wanting to develop that next generation of leaders, or the bench, or the person that's going to replace us, right? Because you're not going to go to take on new challenges if the company doesn't feel confident that they have a succession plan to fill your role. So for me, I've got a couple really key performers on my team that have a ton of potential. And so I'm, always talking to them about my program, frankly, why I think Purdue's the best. But that I think that however they do it, they need to continue learning. And it's on-the-job learning is great, but formalized, education is so valuable. I talk with them a lot about, starting to save for that, really recognizing that you need to invest yourself. Yes, there's tons of financial aid and very inexpensive ways to finance this too, but also there's some cost to this, right? And so putting some of that money aside, being prepared for it, is certainly part of that conversation. But more than anything, just recognizing that I had someone that took a chance on allowing me to do this, and I need to have that open-mindedness as well with my team.
Great, thank you. Aaron?
Agreed with what Jordan has just said. We're always looking for that next generation, that next level of leadership. We do a lot of, especially lately, we've been doing a lot of succession planning on, who's in the pipeline, and what gaps do they have, what opportunities are there for them to progress and learn, and certainly an MBA or an EMBA is part of that. And I've been fortunate to have Since I graduated, this is kind of very pertinent question. I have had two of my employees that I approved to begin MBA programs, and we put into place the exact same kind of format that we've been using with me, where, yeah, you got to check in with, with HR in this case and give an update, but then it's part of our normal back and forth now. It's part of the conversation. How's your program going? What are you learning about this semester? How are those classes you're learning impacting your career? Not your career, but your business.
Yeah.
They hope it impacts their career in a positive way, of course. And again, that's an opportunity to discuss that too. But for us, and I mean my employer, CalSec, it's a big part of the benefit plan that we offer to our employees is that we offer to help with tuition if they can come forward with a plan of what kind of program they're looking at and show how it will benefit not only themselves, which is an important part of it, but also the company too. Hey, if we do this, if we invest in you,
yeah,
what do you feel like the impact's going to be for CalSec, for our growth and for your peers across the organization? What impact are you going to have? What learnings are you going to bring back? And it's been a great conversation, or great conversations to have with employees to see where their thoughts are, what their hopes and aspirations are. It just adds, again, to that conversation that should already be taking place with your employees. Here's another dimension of it, though, that having an MBA or an EMBA just broadens most people's horizons and allows and gives them the opportunity to learn and grow both personally and professionally.
Thank you. What's neat of today's webinar, I've talked to Jordan and Aaron many times. We've never really talked about these topics before. So just hearing how you manage that process and impact during the program and after, very, very good to hear. And again, it's sort of, behind the scenes. And I think everyone that joined today, they've heard a lot of great advice, a lot of great insights as well. So I'm going to wrap up just for next steps. So as you have these conversations in your company, what else should you be thinking about? So certainly tuition, that's been touched upon. One thing I want to emphasize is our tuition is all inclusive. So really all you have to do is get to and from campus. Many people use their frequent flyer miles if it is the global program. Some of the meals you're on your own. And for international students, there is a registration fee each semester. The tuition is $90,000 split into 5 payments, and it does cover multiple calendar years. Many companies have a limit of how much they'll provide each calendar year. So the fact that you can split it across multiple calendar years, again, it's a benefit for you as you go through the program. Career impact, that's a thing that we've been talking about today. Since Jordan and Aaron graduated, is we're now working with an organization called Right Management. They're a division of Manpower. And so they have all those resources, and they really do provide from start to finish, working with you on career assessment, a vast array of resources online, and then the ability to work with a career management consultant while you're in the program and up to 6 months after graduation as well, because that's often where you're going to see that impact. The other thing about career is your cohort members. Jordan and Aaron have talked about that a bit. Clearly, they know their cohort members well. And I think part of it is that they're not your competitors. You can share your career experiences, your goals with them, and they're more likely to share ideas with you than if you're all from the same city where you may be vying for the same job potentially. We do see 80% of our alums are promoted within 2 years of graduation. A number are promoted while they are in the program as well, and certainly a significant impact on the career side, on the salary side. And then here I have this photo from one of our alums from a few years back, who we do talk about the networking. I think our program is different because it's not an arm's length network. You do know the people in the program. I think in Jordan's cohort, we had the Rolls-Royce person blanking out on his name, which I feel really bad about.
Kevin.
Go ahead.
Kevin,
yes. Sorry, Kevin. But he's the one that said, I feel now that I can call anyone in my cohort if I'm in town and I can sleep on their couch. I think that captures the spirit of what comes through this program as well. And I feel Aaron could probably say the same thing about his cohort.
Yeah.
And just final navigating the path. If you think this is the right program for you, great. We focus a lot on fit, making sure it is the right fit for you as well. So if you've not shared your resume with us for review, please do so, and we can make a GMAT waiver determination. We talked about providing this program comparison to you, connecting you with alums, again, giving you information to make sure you're comfortable with this. Discuss this plan with your supervisor and HR department. That's what we've talked about this past hour. Come November, we'll be doing our EMBA 101, where we go a bit broader into the topics about the program, and I'll have an alum joining me then. In December, we'll have a discussion on how the Purdue EMBA has helped people prepare for challenges of COVID and beyond. We'll have people that have started during the COVID era, if you will. It's added some complications, but some flexibility as well is what we're seeing. We'll have cohorts on campus in October, November. We invite you to come visit us on campus or virtually. I call it test driving the EMBA, and it's a good way to see how this experience and how the cohorts work together. Application is online, fairly straightforward. And then when you're ready, we'll have the interview. It's with myself and the second member of our admissions committee. I'm quite sure Jordan and Aaron had their interviews with me as well. Sometimes there's one per cohort that slips past me because I'm on vacation or something. And then if you're admitted, get ready to be challenged. Jordan and Aaron used a lot of adjectives today. The word easy was not one of them. It is challenging, but it is rewarding. And I think just what they've continued to be able to do is a testament to the knowledge gained. It is challenging, but you get what you put in, and they both were hard workers. They put in a lot, but they got a lot out of the program as well. Just looking at deadlines, December 7th for application fee waiver. Plus, if you're a Purdue alum, work at an NGO, if you come visit us on campus or you're a veteran. And I think today's attendees also get the application fee waived. A priority scholarship review on the funding side by January 7th application, and then February 7th for the regular application deadline. And then for next year, June, July, and August, it's not too early to be thinking about that program as well, is what we have coming up for those particular deadlines. So I see we've gone just a little bit past the 1 hour mark. Again, Jordan and Aaron are available afterwards. We can connect you to them or any other alums that will share their experiences. They'll share their challenges and accomplishments as well. So with that, I thank you, Jordan. I thank you, Aaron, for joining us today. Always great to see you both. I thank everyone else for joining today, and I look forward to hearing from you and supporting you in your EMBA journey. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thanks, Aldas.